Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wonder Series, where we are here every single week to help you look outside the box, look at your life from a different perspective, and to ultimately figure out who you would be, what you would do, and what are the things that you would create. If you looked at opportunities and possibilities that come your way that you may not be looking at right now. Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Denise Stiegel. I am your host here of the Wonder Series. Wonder Series is sponsored by Living Healthy List. I'm really excited today. We have a lovely, lovely guest here. Her name is Micelle Gordon, and Micelle and I are going to have a bit of a different conversation. This is going to be a lot of fun. It is going to be interesting and intriguing and all of those things. Like, we want you to look outside the box because all of us kind of get stuck in our own lives. We get in our own way. And Micelle is someone who was there and has escaped that, found her way, and now she is here to help others. So Micelle is a registered nurse. She's an NLP practitioner, Reiki practitioner, mindset and manifestation coach. She helps women become free from burnout and overwhelm and live a life in alignment with their dreams. Micelle, welcome to the Wonder Series.
Thank you, Denise. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, and everyone, of course, with Michelle's accent, she is not here in the States. So she is up very early this morning to be with you today.
I am. I'm all the way over in Australia, so it's nice and early here this morning.
Yeah. Lovely. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what's your story? How did you get to be where you are today as the healthy, happy nurse that you are?
Yeah, that's right. So these days, I go by the healthy, happy nurse. I am a registered nurse of 24 years, and I have had quite the journey in my career and motherhood and in life. And I have had my journeys consisted of burnout and overwhelm and battling with anxiety and alcoholism. And so a few years ago now, I think it was back in 2016 to 2018, I really hit rock bottom. And I found myself in a really, really dark place. And I stayed in that space for obviously that those 2 years, and realized at that point that my life just wasn't working for me, that I had been working so extremely hard in my role as a nurse, that I'd almost become so detached from who I was, and I basically hit rock bottom.
Well, and you weren't just living alone, you had a family. How did that, manifest with your family? And, how did you manage both, career with the burnout and family? What did that look like in your life?
Yeah, so I've got 3 beautiful children. So two small boys at the time, and a brand new baby. And when my little girl was 10 months old, I had to go back to work. My husband's business, we just literally started a brand new business. The company who he was working for closed down. So we started out on our own in his trade. He's a tradesman. And there was no work. As you can imagine, starting a new business, he was looking at me. I was sitting on the couch breastfeeding my daughter, and I was looking at him saying, well, why aren't you going to work? And he said, there's no work, hon. Like, I don't have any work this week. There's nothing booked in. And I had taken some time off of work for for our baby. And I basically rang my local hospital, and they said, when can you do a shift? Like, we need someone straight away, come in. So I think I went back to work the next day, handed over the baby. and went in. And it kind of started from that point that I just became the sole, like I knew that I could go out and work and I could do as many shifts as I wanted to support our family. And the rest became a blur. And so my two little boys and my little baby girl were just getting what was left of me after, working 6-7 shifts in a row. And I was numb. I wasn't present. I wasn't showing up. I was operating from this almost like robotic mode. And I did that for that whole, was probably longer than a couple of years looking back at it now. And yeah, they knew I wasn't present though, my little children. They just knew. And I knew it at the time, but I was just in this mindset, I've got to keep going. I've got to keep striving. I've got to keep supporting our family. And eventually it all just came to a head where I had to face up to what was actually happening.
Sure. Well, if this was affecting your family, it had to have been affecting work as well. If you weren't completely yourself at home, how could you be completely yourself at work as well?
Yeah, that's right. And I work in the emergency department here. And of course, that's hectic and crazy. And we see some pretty horrible things in the emergency department, as you can imagine. And I wasn't really processing what was going on. I was showing up for work and I was doing my job, but I was doing, the best I could. Obviously, I was tired and I was exhausted. But I kept sort of putting all of my feelings and my emotions and processing each shift on the back burner. I was like, oh, I'll deal with that later. I'll just go home, pour a glass of wine. That'll help me wind down and then I'll be right for tomorrow. And so that became my pattern, and it became a really unhealthy pattern. So whilst I was showing up for work in full capacity, I was coming home a broken mess. Yeah.
I can only imagine. I live in a town where we have a huge clinic here, and we know people who work in the emergency room, and the stories, and I only get bits and pieces. I can't imagine, working shift after shift after shift, like how you kind of process and move on. So that I can imagine, even without struggling with everything else, like how do you, how you could, leave a shift and not feel burnt out or tired or exhausted. And those emotions that, like you said, you kind of put the emotions aside. Incredible. So what was the point where you said, okay, I need to do something? And what was that first thing that you did?
Yeah, so there was a few different signs that I started to realize I'm not in a good place. And I could see my little boys watching me. I could see them. I'd come home from work. I would try and sort of disconnect and try and be present for them, but I wasn't. And I knew that they were watching, and I could get a sense that they knew that their mum wasn't there. I was physically there, but mentally I wasn't there. And I started seeing some things at work that were, patients, and having these interactions with patients, and realize this was a reflection of my life. Like there was probably 7 different instances where I went into work, and there were one of them was a woman who had end-stage liver failure. She was my age. I was like 40 years old at the time. She was waiting to go on the transplant list, and she had alcoholic liver cirrhosis. And I looked at her and she was dying. And I thought, oh my gosh, like I had been drinking so heavily at that time as well, because that was my coping, you know, the way I coped, the way I numbed everything down. And then there was something happened at work, and I looked after another patient, and it was almost like this mirror of, Micelle, like this is a little sign that you need to, or a nudge that you need to have a look here. And what really was the catalyst was when my little girl was 2.5, and I'd come home from a shift. I had tried to break the pattern and the habit, and I tried to make some changes, and I sat down. I just couldn't break what was going on. I really needed, it was almost like a big slap in the face of wake up. And I sat down, had a couple of glasses of wine at that stage, was getting into my usual pattern of winding down, numbing out, disconnecting from the previous 8 hours. And she toddled up to me and basically stood in front of me and looked up at me. She was a toddler. She was, you know, barely stringing a sentence together. And she just looked into my eyes and said, "Mummy, where are you?" And it was that moment where she just looked straight into my soul. And I just went, oh my gosh, like it was, I came straight back to reality and realized that she knew at that tiny little age that I wasn't present for her. And so the next day, I think I started to make some changes. I enrolled myself in a personal development course, which was a 3-month course. I put the wine away, never to be had again. I dived all into my health and fitness, and I started to really integrate some big changes in my life that I'd never done before. And I was always looking for a quick fix, something to sort of, oh, maybe this will help me, that maybe this will help me. But I knew that I had to do some real deep inner work. And so that's when it started.
I think all of us at some point when we figure out that we're in need of something, we all look for that quick fix because we really want the result, but getting from point A to point B is really uncomfortable.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. When you talk the personal development course, what type of course was it? Because I'm curious, because I think for each person, it's something very different. It's something very unique.
Yeah. So it was really about reconnecting with who you are at the soul deep level. And I'd never done anything like it. A friend had done this particular course, and she had some really good results. And I said, oh, okay. Had sort of had it in the back of my mind for 6 months. And then I thought, I actually need to probably do this, because I had become so detached from who I was, what was important to me, who I was without the nurse title and the mother title and the wife, you know.
Who was Micelle?
Yeah, I didn't even know who she was. I was like, I didn't even know what I enjoyed. And one of the questions in that course was, what lights you up? And I didn't even know. I had no idea. And at that point I went, whoa, like I need to, I've got to do this work here.
So different from what, with the, drinking and the stress, it all came down to who is Micelle and what's Micelle about. So that's interesting. So tell us a little bit about how that got you from that place to becoming the healthy, happy nurse. Because I'm assuming you were at this point, you were still working as a nurse.
Yeah. Yep. So I did this course. I dived right into my fitness. And what I found was that moving my body was such a great outlet for me. it was so therapeutic. It really made space in my mind because my brain didn't have any space to think. I was at work, at that point I was working full time. I have three small children, helping my husband run his business and get that off the ground. And my brain didn't have any space. And so at no point over that time did I even allow myself any space to think, to process, to get to know myself again at this whole new level as a 40-year-old woman. And I started going to gym, and I realized that this was a place where my mind really unlocked, and I could start to think about, I had clarity. I really found clarity there, and I wasn't avoiding those emotions anymore. It was where I had to really, really confront them and really confront my thoughts and my feelings that I'd never, ever done before. And so that was a really beautiful start to what of that sort of inner growth, personal development. And then the journey just took me. Like I started to show up different at work. I'd lost a lot of weight. My body was fit and strong. My colleagues started noticing at work that my skin was glowing, my eyes were clear, that I was confident, that in these emergency situations that I was really calm and controlled. And I had all of these people saying, "What are you doing? Like, you just look amazing. You're showing up so different. How can I get some of that? How can I get some of that?" And I kept that to myself for about 12 months because I was still on the journey and I wasn't really sure where I was going. But the more that I grew and evolved, the more people started coming to me, wanting to know what I was doing. So I then had, multiple conversations along the way, and it came about where I said, I probably could help people. That was my thought. I could probably put what I have done into my own course and really help. My goal at the time was to help nurses, because I could see then that a lot of nurses were just like me. They were coping in similar ways to me. They had the same stresses in their life that I had, the shift work and the stress of nursing in itself, motherhood, all of those different titles. And so I started to write and develop this program, for other nurses, which has now gone beyond nurses.
Sure. And it's important to point out, this happened before COVID. So,
Yes.
we're all talking, now, we're talking a lot about nurses and people in the medical profession and stress and burnout, where we never really did before. The only people who really knew what was happening were the people that it was happening to. Like the rest of us, you go to the hospital, you see the nurses, everybody is doing their job, they're doing what they're supposed to do. And, as a patient, you don't see, behind the mask of, the nurse who's there to help. So I think it's important for people to realize that this is something that is it's pretty common and an ongoing thing, not just because of the last 2 years with pandemic or whatever it may be, that this is a stressful job, and stressful jobs have certain things that when you have a certain stress level, we all manage them differently. But I think what's important to know is, once you recognize it, it's time to make a decision. Okay, you recognize that there's a challenge. Now what? And I think it's amazing that you took this course and kept it to yourself for such a long period of time.
Yeah.
So with this course, I would say new course, but you've been doing this a little bit now. You help women to live in alignment. Explain to us, what does that really mean?
Yeah. So it's taking me, I actually launched the course. It took me 12 months to write, and I really took my time with it and really went over the steps that I took in my own journey, because it really was a multiple steps. And I had tried counseling. I actually went to my employee and told them that I was struggling. I didn't sort of go to what extent. And they handed me a card for a psychologist. And then they also handed me a card for counseling, but I never, I went to them all, but I didn't find that there was the benefit. And for whatever reason, it just didn't gel with me. And that's when I decided to do my own course. And excuse me, my dog's out the window barking.
No worries.
What happened was, I realized after my own journey that I had come back into this place where I felt at home. Like, I just felt like that I was showing up in the full energy of who I was and always was. I felt so peaceful, so calm, so I could feel joy again. I could feel my emotions. I could process things. And part of that journey was really going deep into my subconscious mind, unlocking some limiting beliefs about myself, about life, really having a look at my past conditioning. So I realized that one of my programs or conditioning that I had grown up to believe true was you had to work really, really hard to get anywhere in life.
Yep, I've heard that one.
Yeah. And my gorgeous parents, bless them, I love them so much, had their own business, and they really struggled for a lot of years. And most of my childhood, we struggled. We couldn't have the things that other families could have. My parents, my mum worked multiple jobs, my dad worked 7 days a week. And that's all I heard, that life's tough and you've got to get out there and you've got to push through and you've got to strive and and so I had this belief about life that that's how you showed up. That's how I was to show up in the world and work. And I started to see that these conditioning and programs and beliefs weren't actually true. And you can change them. You can change the way you want to do life. And so that was a big thing that I really went inwards and did. A lot of mindset work as well. So with that came mindset. A lot of processing those emotions and working through feelings and emotions, a lot of body movement, meditation, slowing everything down, and really getting rid of the distractions in life, eliminating the distractions, because that's massive. We're all on our phones and emails and notifications, and I was just in it all of the time.
I was going to ask, you said, distractions. How do you avoid distractions when you have 3 kids at home and a job and a husband? And so I'm intrigued, did you have a set calendar, a set schedule? Like, how did you manage? Because you were still working, you were still a mom, you were still the wife, but you were becoming Micelle again.
I was. And so a big piece of that was boundaries. And I had previously had no boundaries in my life. I was working all of the overtime. I was doing extra shifts every week. I was constantly available for, obviously my children, but my family and my friends. And I was constantly running around for everyone else, but didn't have any boundaries around my time or my energy. And so I had to get really crystal clear with who gets to be in my energy. Where does my energy go? And I had to get and really it instills some boundaries around that, which was a hard thing to do because I'd never done it before.
Right. And it's one thing to say, okay, I know I need to have these boundaries, but it's really hard to tell other people who you've never had boundaries with before, these are my new boundaries, without them looking at you like, wait a minute, what's this about?
Yeah. And so I pretty much avoided, and I really needed to do this, but I stopped seeing people. I had to have some time away to really process who I was going to show up as, like this new version of Micelle, who's not new, but Micelle at her core level, at that soul deep level, who is happy, who is healthy, who is still having fun, who loves her life. How does she show up in the world? Does she do all of that running around and come home exhausted and then feel frustrated and resentful? Or does she have her own time, and does she get really clear with, who she spends time with, where she does spend her time? And so I started to practice meditation, and that was my very first tool that I did. And then I started to say no to things, people, events, to shifts at work. Like, that was huge. I stopped picking up extra shifts. In fact, I actually cut back my shifts. And yeah, so I wasn't showing up. And I was so scared of the money, because that was, again, part of my conditioning, was the money story and belief. But when I did this, all of this stuff just started to flow in. My husband's business took off. The friendships that weren't aligned anymore, that weren't actually beautiful friendships, they were just sort of surface level, they dissolved, and new friendships came in that were so good and so aligned. And this is where I talk about alignment, because everything started to drop in that felt really good and that were supportive and nurturing and nourishing and everything that I'd always wanted. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And obviously, like, overcoming adversity and all of these things, there has to be a step one. And I would say, based on our conversation, step one is recognizing it.
Yes. Yes.
Why do you think so many of us, because what we're talking about is unique to us, but it's not at the same time. We're all struggling with so many different things, whether it's burnout, it's too much work, it's no boundaries, it's all of these things. How does one recognize that they have a problem?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that, because module 1 in the course that I wrote is recognition and acceptance. And there you go, like, that just says it all, because there was, I think we do life and we get on this journey of life, and we get swept away, and we're pulled in multiple directions, we're distracted, we're working, we do all of the things, and we can lose ourselves along the way, and we can really lose what's important to us, which is exactly what I'd done. I'd lost myself. I'd become so detached. I lost connection. I lost the love in my family. And I had to stop and look at all of these areas in my life, such as, finances, my mental health, all of my relationships, my work life. I looked at everything and went, what is not working for me here? And when I went and did that, it was, none of them were working. I didn't feel good about any of them. We were in a financial, really struggling financially, emotionally, I wasn't coping, mentally, I wasn't well. And so there was all of these things that I actually did a reflection on all of these important key areas of my life. And I just had to come face to face and say, stop pretending. Like,
Mhm.
it's not working, Micelle. Stop pretending to the rest of the world and to yourself that it's not working.
Mhm.
And that's what I did. And it was a hard pill to swallow. So I didn't like it. I didn't like what I was seeing. But once I did that, it was like, oh, okay, I can move forward now. It was the first step. Yeah.
It is so easy to lie to ourselves, isn't it?
Yep.
We know we need to do work, but it's just so much easier. When you were telling me about all of the different areas in your life, I had that vision of the wheel of life,
Yes.
with the little pie pieces. And it's always interesting because I go to an event every year and we do one of those. And each year there's one or two that aren't perfect, but I've known people who, similar, like they're all kind of low numbers, like, none of them are really great. None of them are really bad necessarily, but none of them are really great. And I think there's a balance. Like, not everything's not going to be great at the same time. But if everything is bad at the same time, that I think is that aha moment where you have to stop lying to yourself and go, okay, smack upside the face. Let's do something different.
Definitely. And that wheel of life, like if your listeners haven't had a look at that's such a great place to start, because it really does give you a visual of every area in your life. And mine was all bad, like all low numbers. And it was like, oh yes, now I can see it.
Yeah. Once you quantify it, when there's no number, it's just kind of out there. And for our listeners, actually, if you go to livinghealthylist.com/book resources, there is actually a wheel of life that is a resource that's part of my new book that just came out, Healthy Living, Happy Life, which is really, Micelle, what we're trying to really cultivate is that healthy lifestyle. Because if we're healthy, we can find the happiness. More often than not, don't you? I think people are searching for happiness, and the health kind of goes by the wayside. Where in your situation, once you started working on your health, mental, physical, emotional health, all of a sudden things worked out.
Definitely. And that's what happened. I started to see all of these beautiful things show up in my life that I now put down to, I was aligned in all of those areas now. I was healthy. My body was strong and fit. I wasn't drinking alcohol every day and every night, I was eating healthy food. I was moving my body. My brain had space to think. I was quietening down my nervous system. And then it was like I unlocked this absolute happiness and just the joy of being with my children. It was like I'd woken up. It was this magical, I could see their smiles again. I could look at their eyes again and see, and it was honestly like was just doing life in this whole new way. Yeah, it was magical.
I would imagine, though, that also the children noticed mommy was back.
Definitely. And my boys said something to me about that, and they're teenagers now, and we have such a great relationship. Yes, they're teenagers. But
let us reiterate, they are teenagers.
they said to me, oh, Mum, we like it now that you don't drink, that you don't drink that wine anymore. And I was able to go for a run with them, bike ride, swim with them. We've got the beach here at our doorstep where I live. And I was now able to do all of those things because I had the energy to. I had this, and I still do all of these years later. I just have this absolute abundant energy where I'm out of bed usually at 5 o'clock every morning, ready to go, let's bring on the day. And I didn't have that before. I would wake up groggy, tired, cranky. I would, the mornings would be absolutely horrible because I'd be yelling and trying to get everyone out the door. And that's not how our house is these days. And it's so beautiful. You know, they can see the difference. They feel the difference. So, yeah.
I love it. I love it. So one of the things that you had written on the form that you sent in was embracing life in all its richness and fullness. And I think what you just said basically shows us exactly how you are doing that.
Absolutely. And that's it. I think we look externally to buy our happiness, or, you know, eat, drink, you know, all of these things to try and make us feel better. But it's really an inside job. When you do that inner work and do all of that, you know, it's not always easy. It's honestly like having these crystal clear glasses on where you just, I don't know how to explain it. Like, simple things bring me so much joy now. Just the absolute simplicity of going for a walk out in nature, having my little girl, you know, scooter along beside me. It's just the best feeling ever. Like, it's so simple, but it's so fulfilling. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So tell us where people, you know, how can our listeners find you? How can they work with you?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram. That's where I hang out a lot. So Micelle Gordon _coach. And I have multiple different courses now, but my main signature program is the Health and Happiness Formula, which was essentially my journey. What we've just talked about is everything is in that program, where I do one-to-one coaching, group coaching, and the online modules are all inside of that. And I'm also on Facebook at the Healthy Happiness. So
wonderful. Wonderful. I am so excited for our listeners to connect with you. Truly go check Micelle out on her Facebook, on her Instagram. She says she's there probably more often, and connect. If you have any kind of struggles, if you know this conversation resonated with you, connect with Micelle. That's what we are here for. We're here to help you to find that healthy, happy lifestyle that you're looking for. But to start with, you have to wonder. You need a sense of wonder. What could my life be like? How could it be different? And Micelle just gave you an amazing story of where her life was at one point and now where it is today, and that beautiful, fulfilling, joy-filled life that she has. So again, Micelle, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Denise.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, we're here every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can find us on Spotify, on Google, on Apple Podcasts, pretty much wherever you listen to your podcasts, you can find us. While you're there, give us a great review, 5-star review if you don't mind, and certainly share with your friends and family. Living Healthy List is our sponsor here of the podcast, the Wonder Series. We will see you next week. Till then, I leave you with this: healthy living for happy life. Have a great day, everyone.